What happens when protecting your teammate makes you public enemy number one? Sophie Cunningham went from unknown bench player to the most controversial figure in the WNBA overnight. And the shocking truth behind her so-called selfish behavior will change everything you thought you knew about loyalty in sports. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. Caitlin Clark just exposed what really happened, and her defense of Cunningham is about to flip this entire narrative on its head. Before we dive into this explosive story, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to reveal will have the entire basketball world talking. Picture this: June 17th, 2025. Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Indiana Fever versus Connecticut Sun. With 40 seconds left on the clock, Sophie Cunningham commits what many are calling the most controversial foul in recent WNBA history. But was it really selfish, or was it something else entirely? Let's rewind. Sophie Cunningham joined the Indiana Fever as a free agent, leaving behind 6 years with the Phoenix Mercury. She wasn't a star. She wasn't even a starter most nights. Averaging just 5.6 points per game, she was the definition of a role player. The kind of player whose jersey stays on the rack while superstars fly off the shelves. But everything changed in one violent moment that would transform her from nobody to the most talked about player in women's basketball. The game was already chippy. Connecticut's J.C. Sheldon had poked Caitlin Clark in the eye during the third quarter. Not a basketball play, just a straight-up eye poke that had Clark seeing stars. Then Marina Mabrey took it further, shoving Clark to the floor with both hands. The refs? They swallowed their whistles like they'd been doing all season. Clark hit the deck hard, and the message was clear. The league's brightest star was fair game for every cheap shot in the book. Sophie Cunningham watched it all unfold from the bench. This black belt in Taekwondo, this farm girl who learned toughness working the fields in Missouri, had seen enough when J.C. Sheldon drove to the basket in the game's final minute. Cunningham didn't just foul her, she threw her to the ground like a rag doll. The arena erupted. Players from both teams rushed in. Punches were thrown, bodies hit the floor. 3 players ejected, $400 fine for Cunningham. And overnight, she became the most polarizing figure in professional sports. But here's where the story takes a wild turn. Within 72 hours, Sophie Cunningham's social media following exploded from 300,000 to over 1.2 million. Her jersey sold out instantly. Couldn't find one anywhere. The team store had to push back orders to July 8th just to keep up with demand. Marketing experts calculated that gaining that many followers organically would cost over $1 million. Sophie Cunningham did it with 1 hard foul and 0 apologies. The WNBA world split right down the middle. Half called her a hero, Clark's bodyguard, the enforcer the Fever desperately needed. The other half, they wanted her head on a platter. A petition surfaced on change.org demanding Sophie Cunningham be banned from the WNBA forever. The petition claimed she was violent, dangerous, a stain on the league's reputation. It painted her as a selfish player who put personal vendettas above team success. Sophie Cunningham's repeated displays of unsportsmanlike conduct have reached a point where decisive action is necessary. The petition read. It accused her of compromising player safety and tarnishing the WNBA's integrity. Within days, nearly 200 signatures. Not exactly a groundswell, but enough to make headlines. Connecticut's coach Rashid Meziane didn't hold back either. When you are winning by 17 points and you are doing this stupid foul, this is just disrespectful, he said. The narrative was set. Sophie Cunningham was a dirty player, a selfish teammate, a loose cannon who cared more about playing enforcer than playing basketball. But they didn't know Sophie Cunningham. This wasn't some hothead looking for Instagram fame. This was a woman who grew up on a farm, learning that you protect your own no matter what. Her father Jim played football at Missouri. Sophie followed in his footsteps, becoming the first female in history to score points for the Columbia Hickman High School football team. She wasn't built for backing down. She was built for standing up. When reporters finally got to Cunningham after the game, she didn't apologize. She didn't backtrack. She doubled down. It was a buildup for a couple years now of them not protecting the star player of the WNBA, she said. At the end of the day, I'm going to protect my teammates. That's what I do. And that's when things got really interesting. Because while half the internet was calling for Sophie Cunningham's head, something beautiful was happening behind the scenes. The Indiana Fever locker room was transforming. Players who'd been walking on eggshells around Caitlin Clark, the generational talent who'd brought unprecedented attention to their team, suddenly felt permission to be themselves, to fight, to care, to protect each other like family. Videos started surfacing of Clark and Cunningham together. Not just teammates, but genuine friends. They'd formed a trio with Lexi Hull, calling themselves Tres Leches. They were spotted everywhere together. Coffee runs, team dinners, even sitting courtside at the WNBA All-Star Weekend cheering on Hull in the skills competition. The chemistry was undeniable, but critics weren't buying it. They called Cunningham's actions calculated, selfish, designed to boost her own profile on Clark's coattails. Then came July 16th, and everything changed. Another Fever-Sun matchup, this time in Indianapolis. The game was physical again, because of course it was. The refs were letting everything go, because of course they were. And midway through the third quarter, Caitlin Clark had enough. Not of the physical play, not of the cheap shots, but of the officials who refused to protect any player wearing a Fever jersey. During a timeout for a coach's challenge, Clark lit into referee Michael Price. And I mean lit into him. "You're rude. Grow up," she barked. Then in a moment that went viral instantly, she pulled out the fake phone gesture and said, "I will be calling." She waved him over like a disappointed parent summoning a misbehaving child. The crowd went wild. Social media exploded. But what happened next is what really matters. After the game, reporters asked Clark about Sophie Cunningham, about the controversy, about whether she thought her teammate was selfish for the hard fouls and the drama. Clark's response shut down every critic in the building. "Sophie does exactly what this team needs," Clark said. "She brings energy, toughness, and accountability. People calling her selfish have no idea what they're talking about. You know what's selfish? Standing by and watching your teammates get abused night after night. Sophie put her body, her reputation, and her bank account on the line for this team. That's not selfish, that's sacrifice." But Clark wasn't done. She went on to reveal something that changed the entire narrative. "You want to know the truth? I told Sophie before that Connecticut game that I was tired of getting hit. I was frustrated. I was hurting." She looked me in the eye and said, "Next time they touch you, I got you." She kept her word. How is that selfish? The locker room footage that leaked later that week told the whole story. After Cunningham's ejection, the entire Fever team surrounded her. Not with criticism, but with gratitude. Aaliyah Boston hugged her, Kelsey Mitchell high-fived her, and Caitlin Clark? She whispered something in Cunningham's ear that cameras couldn't pick up, but the smile on both their faces said everything. Here's what the critics missed. Sophie Cunningham didn't just gain 1 million followers, she gained something far more valuable: the complete trust of her teammates. Fever coach Stephanie White put it best: "When you allow physical play to escalate without consequence, players will protect each other." Sophie did what the officials wouldn't. She protected her teammate. The impact was immediate and profound. In the games following the incident, opposing teams suddenly thought twice before taking liberties with Clark. The message had been sent loud and clear. You want to play dirty? Sophie Cunningham's got time for that smoke. The Fever's chemistry improved dramatically. They went from a team playing scared to a team playing angry. The good kind of angry, the kind that wins games. But perhaps the most telling moment came during a seemingly innocent team practice in late June. Local media captured Cunningham and Clark working on a drill together. Clark missed a shot, got frustrated, and slammed the ball down. Cunningham walked over, picked up the ball, and said something that made Clark laugh. Later, Clark revealed what Cunningham had said. She told me, "You worry about making shots. I'll worry about making sure you get to take them." That's not selfish. That's the definition of selfless. Taking the villain role so your teammate can be the hero. Absorbing the hate so your friend can shine. Risking your reputation so your team can win. Sophie Cunningham understood something that her critics never will. Sometimes protecting what matters means becoming what others hate. The numbers tell the real story. Since Cunningham's arrival and her emergence as the Fever's enforcer, Caitlin Clark's scoring average increased. Her assist numbers went up. Her confidence soared. Why? Because she finally felt safe to play her game. She wasn't looking over her shoulder anymore. She wasn't bracing for the next cheap shot. She could just ball. And let's talk about that 1 million follower boost. You know what Sophie Cunningham did with her newfound fame? She used it to promote her teammates. Her social media became a highlight reel of Fever basketball. She shouted out role players who never got recognition. She shared behind-the-scenes moments that humanized the team. She turned her platform into their platform. Selfish? Please. The petition to ban her? It stalled at less than 200 signatures. Meanwhile, her jersey sales helped fund team initiatives. Her popularity brought new eyes to the WNBA. Her willingness to be the bad guy gave the league its most compelling storyline in years. Heroes need villains, but sometimes the villain is actually the hero. Sophie Cunningham understood the assignment, but here's the part that'll really blow your mind. Remember that $400 fine? Caitlin Clark tried to pay it. Sophie wouldn't let her. "This is my fine," she said. "I earned it protecting my teammate. I'll pay it with pride." When that story leaked, even some of Cunningham's harshest critics had to pause. This wasn't about clout, this was about code. Fast forward to the All-Star break. Sophie Cunningham sat for an exclusive interview where she finally addressed the selfish accusations head-on. "You know what would have been selfish?" she asked. "Sitting on that bench watching Caitlin get abused and doing nothing because I didn't want to hurt my image. Watching my teammates suffer so I could keep my nose clean, that's selfish. Standing up for your family even when it costs you, that's love." The transformation of the Indiana Fever tells you everything you need to know. Before Cunningham's arrival, they were soft, pushed around. After, they became must-watch television. Not just because of Caitlin Clark's wizardry, but because you never knew when Sophie Cunningham might snap and remind everyone that basketball is still a contact sport. Former NBA enforcer Joakim Noah, who protected Derrick Rose during his Chicago Bulls days, weighed in on the controversy. "What Sophie did is what every good teammate should do," Noah said. "You protect your stars, period. Anyone calling that selfish never played team sports at a high level." The real joke is that Sophie Cunningham's actions weren't just unselfish, they were smart. By establishing herself as Clark's protector, she secured her role on the team. She made herself indispensable. She turned a journeywoman career into a legacy. That's not selfish. That's strategic. That's understanding your value beyond the box score. As the season progressed, something beautiful emerged. The Fever weren't just winning more games, they were playing with joy. Clark was looser, more creative, more willing to take risks. Why? Because she knew Sophie had her back. The entire team fed off that energy. They went from WNBA afterthought to must-see TV. The culmination came during a late-season game when Clark took a hard foul and hit the deck. Before the refs could even blow the whistle, Sophie Cunningham was there. Not throwing punches this time, just helping her teammate up, staring down the offender, and walking away. The message was clear. We're past the warnings. You know what happens next. Social media exploded again, but this time the narrative was different. People finally understood. Sophie Cunningham wasn't a dirty player. She was a guardian. She wasn't selfish. She was the most selfless player in the league, willing to be hated so her teammates could be loved. When the Fever made their playoff push, every analyst pointed to the same turning point. June 17th, the night Sophie Cunningham decided enough was enough. The night she chose protection over perception. The night she became infamous for all the right reasons. Caitlin Clark said it best in a recent podcast appearance. "People ask me about Sophie being selfish, and I laugh. You know what Sophie's never asked me for? The spotlight. Credit, recognition. You know what she has asked me for? If I'm okay after hard fouls, if I need anything, if my family's doing well, that's my teammate, that's my friend, that's my enforcer." The lesson here is simple but profound. Sometimes doing the right thing makes you look like the bad guy. Sometimes protecting what matters requires sacrificing what's comfortable. Sophie Cunningham understood that. She embraced it, she owned it, and in doing so, she didn't just change her career, she changed the culture of an entire franchise. So the next time someone calls Sophie Cunningham selfish, remember this. She turned down personal endorsement deals that conflicted with team sponsors. She spent her fine money on team dinners. She used her million new followers to promote women's basketball, not just herself. She put her body on the line for a teammate she'd known for mere months. If that's selfish, then maybe we need more selfish players in sports. The Indiana Fever found their identity the night Sophie Cunningham decided to be the villain. They found their voice when Caitlin Clark defended her defender. They found their soul when they realized that basketball is more than just points and assists. It's about having each other's backs, no matter the cost. And that $400 fine, it might just be the best investment in WNBA history, because it bought something priceless: unity, purpose, and a message to the entire league. You come for one of us, you get all of us. And Sophie Cunningham, she'll be waiting. Like this video if you think Sophie Cunningham deserves an apology from all her critics. Subscribe for more untold stories from inside the WNBA. And remember, sometimes the most selfless thing you can do is let everyone think you're selfish. Sophie Cunningham knows that better than anyone. And now, so do you.